Hello, this is Mad Cat, the angry egalitarian that discusses this and that. Today will be my final video, most likely, for the men's rights survey and non-feminist women. So let's go ahead and start the screen share. Now, when I first started doing this for this specific series, I know I've been following this right from the beginning, but we were at 399 people. We have nearly come to 200 people who have taken this since I have started this. And while there have been some trolls who tried to come in and destroy this, they failed. They failed miserably. And we've gotten a lot of good results from this. Now, I say this is my last one because I probably won't do this again until we reach 1,000. And I think that will have very definite results. But in all honesty, it won't really be all that different, I don't think. Unless radical feminists really try to come in and take over this and push another 400 people on this, it might affect the results a little bit. But anything less than that, I don't think is really going to make that much of a difference. I think we've already spoken aloud with what we've already accomplished here. At one point in time, this was 11 something. And it's funny because none of the above, 63 people say none of the above, and only 61 say they're feminist. The lowest rating on here, the lowest thing that anyone identifies with is feminism. I just find that so funny. If you're joining us in chat, feel free to make a comment in chat, and I'll be happy to address your comment as best as I can. So let us go all the way to the end. Now, I will probably be doing an article on the Honey Badger site, trying to go over some of the more important aspects of this, things that we can learn about. We're going to look at a few stats, but we're also going to be looking at comments today. And I look forward to see how many of you respond to the comments in here. There's a lot to go that we went through in this. Okay, so, we already did that. So when we come to the end of this, we see all of the people who have taken this. These were open-ended questions. People could list the things there. Where did people learn about this survey? And I just want to take a moment to show the amount of pride that I have for this, that I feel like I've actually accomplished something in getting people to use this. I mean, nearly 200 people since I started doing this video. I won't take credit for all 200 of those people, but I think that the videos that I have done have definitely helped out. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. So we see right here, Mad Cat Men's Rights Survey. Whoops. Take down MRA. This person tried to troll me and told other people to take this survey to help me out. Didn't really do anything. In Feminist YouTube channel, I take partial credit for that because my interview with In Feminism, that's when she first discussed the survey. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but let's go down through the list more. There's a lot of people doing things. In Feminism, still taking partial credit for that. Oh, I didn't mark this. Mad Cat's YouTube channel. So that's fantastic. Sierra McCord's with the video that she did with me. Mad Cat Stream. Mad Cap. Still taking credit for that. And Feminism on YouTube. Mad Cat's video with End Feminism. I'm really bad at marking these. End Feminism, still taking partial credit. Mad Cat with a K, still taking credit for that. Another Takedown MRA's Twitter account. Mad Cat, Mad Cat. GoodGuyComic.com. I am the site admin for that, and I did post an article on there about this. Directly my Twitter account name. Mad Cat linked it to me. And then the Good Guy Men's Rights Survey right there. That was also me. That was the direct link to it. Hello, Nemesis Diablo. You're joining us right at the beginning. So, yeah, as you can see, there were a lot of mentions of me, and there are a lot of other mentions as well. But I feel that I've been one of the forces behind this survey to get the results that it has gotten. And I am extremely proud of that. Before we go into these comments, I do want to read these down below, as I'm sure if I don't do it, some feminists will try to say that I was covering it up or hiding it. Have you ever suffered from a chronic mental illness? Half of the people say yes, half of them say no. So that's good. That's good that half say no, because a chronic mental illness is nothing fun. Have you ever been sexually assaulted? 1 out of 3 people have said yes, they have been sexually assaulted. Now, this is not necessarily rape. This is sexually assaulted. I wish it asked the question about rape, though, because I would have loved to have seen that result. But 1 out of 3 of men and women, 1 out of 3 people have been sexually assaulted in this survey. Now, nearly 600 people is a great amount of people. It could almost be considered a good sample size. But again, we're including men and women in this together. Have you ever been physically assaulted? Now, nearly 2 out of 3 people have said yes to this. 1 out of 3 people said they've been sexually assaulted, but 2 out of 3 people have said they've been physically assaulted. And that is very disheartening. Have you ever been a victim of domestic abuse? 1 out of 3 people have basically said yes. And it's unfortunate that these things are happening, but it's so good that the majority of the people haven't. That 2 out of the 3 people have not been a victim of domestic violence. So it's not as big as a problem as feminists have tried to claim it is. Hey, Sato Christ. It's not as big of a problem as they say it is, but it is still a problem. Don't get me wrong. Have you ever been addicted to drugs or alcohol? Only 1 out of 10 people have actually been addicted to drugs and alcohol. Do you have any sort of physical or mobility disabilities? And I would say I actually answered yes to this. Only 13% said yes to this. I guess when we look at this part right here, this is basically saying that half the people do not have a mental illness. And even having a mental illness doesn't necessarily make you a psychopath or a sociopath. There's a wide range of mental illnesses. Even being a high-functional autistic person who can still understand the right or wrong is technically a mental illness. So a lot of feminists might use this and say, well, half the people were insane, so it doesn't matter what this result says. But that's making a judgment on those that have mental illnesses, because there are a lot of high-functioning people with mental illnesses. But there are a lot of people who haven't been sexually assaulted. There are a lot of people who have been physically assaulted. A lot of people who haven't suffered through domestic violence. And a lot of people who don't do drugs or are not addicted to drugs. Let's make that distinction. And most people who do not have a physical or mobility disability. So, okay, so we're going to go through the comments like I did with the last video. If you could educate people about the importance of men's rights in a couple of sentences, what would you say? Now, I did something a little bit differently with this video than what I did with the last video. Anytime there's a negative comment that a feminist said, I will mark it in red. I said that really fast so someone doesn't try to splice that with a previous video. Excuse me. So anytime you see red, it's because there's a feminist who, a feminist said something really bad. All right, I didn't mark all of these, but there is a lot to go through. So, education about men's rights in a couple of sentences. Men's issues and women's issues often run parallel to each other. If we only try to fix one and not the other, we're putting a band-aid over the problem. I'll admit that women still have issues that need to be addressed, but not nearly as much as men's issues. But I do agree that if we only focus on one and not the other, we're not actually solving any problems. It's basically a temporary fix to a much larger problem, which is culture. Men face... Oh, hold on, let me take a drink real quick. And my regulars know this, but if you're watching this, go ahead and leave a comment. I will try to respond to you as best as I can. And also remember, just as a quick update, that I am going to be doing a video on Sunday that's going to relate to like a week in review for the honey badger. So be sure to check that out. And it might be possible for people to be able to come on and voice their opinions on the channel itself. So definitely watch out for that. Okay, men face problems as much as, if not more than, women. I agree. It is important to highlight those issues for correction. Everyone makes mistakes, but it is everyone's mistake to allow someone to be discriminated against because of their gender, race, sex, etc. To ignore the problems of men is to be against equality, just as it is to be for trans, minorities, or women. And that is very true. If you ignore men's problems, then you have shown that you are not for equality in any way. Say to Chris, no, I did not make this survey. I wish I could take credit for this survey, in all honesty, because it was mostly well put together. I might have made a couple of changes here and there in how some of the questions were worded and some of the order that it was done. I really wish I did. I wish I could take credit for this. The only credit I can really take is I've drove a lot of people to take this survey. We live in a society where even mentioning victimization of men or the discussion of issues affecting men is seen as an attack on women. Oh my God, that is so true. And if feminism was really about equality and really about women, men's issues, they wouldn't get offended when it's brought up in conversation. The men's rights movement seek to address these biases through raising consciousness of men's issues and hopes to achieve true equality, wherein we care for everyone experiencing hardship in our society, regardless of their gender or sex. Now, there is a point of contention there. The men's rights movement is catering specifically to men. Now, they're open to women, they're open to trans issues, what have you, and they're willing to work on those, but they're mostly centered on men because feminism is centered exclusively on women. What we really need is these two to be working together towards a common goal of equality. We can have a group for men, we can have a group for women, but then they need to learn to work together. The only way we can get them to work together is if feminism gets the stick out of their ass. Nemesis Diablo. Women's problems. They are now bitching about air conditioning in offices. That to me is not a big deal. No, most of the things that women complain about is not a big deal. I did read the Breitbart article about that, and that's just fucking ridiculous. I mean, most of the time when you have a low air conditioning, it's because you have computers in the room and that they need to be cool. But even then, most of the time, I've worked in places that were predominantly women, and they always complain about how hot it was. Even then, women are allowed to have women have a lot of freedoms when it comes to dress code. They say they don't, but they actually do, because men are required to wear a shirt and a tie. And if they happen to be cold, tough shit. They can't do anything about it. And if someone is controlling the AC, it's probably because they're in charge of that building and they have to pay the rent there or something. There's a reason why it's set there. It's probably to accommodate the greater whole rather than the individuals. So no. But there are issues that women have that are worth discussing about, but feminism takes it to such a horrible extreme where they will discuss anything they happen to want to complain about and make it a gender issue. Okay, so go look at the actual studies and evidence for the wage gap and domestic abuse. There are non-issue, non-gender issues. What is an important gender issue is the fact that 20 more domestic female shelters than there are male shelters in the UK, and domestic abuse rate is almost equal for both genders. I guess he's saying for every one male shelter, there's 20 female domestic shelters. The fact that male suicide is 3 times that of women, and women use 3/4 of the mental health care in the UK. Now, I know that statistic is a bit different for the United States, so I don't know if it actually is 3 times that of women or if it's more, but I guess I could say at the bare minimum it's 3. These numbers don't add up. Men aren't committing suicide because they can't talk about their feelings, though that could prevent it. Men are killing themselves because in the first world, we cater to women's emotional needs over men's. That is very true. Our whole society, men and women care about women, but neither men or women care about other men. And that is a problem in our society. That is a behavior that we have to correct, which is almost impossible to correct it because it's part of our instincts to do it. If a woman is crying, everyone will do everything they can to help that woman crying. But if a man's crying, they'll probably laugh at him. Sato Chris responding to the air conditioning. It is easier to get warm rather than to get cooler. So if women think that it's men needing cooler conditions is oppression, they really don't know what they're talking about. That is a very true point. If you're cold, you can wrap up to get warmer. But if you're hot, there's nothing you can do to get cooler. So from that standpoint, it actually makes sense why most places are cold, is because most people want to have things colder. And if you want to warm up, you can wear extra layers. That makes perfect sense. It's not oppression. It's just logic. Good point there, Sato Christ. Men are oppressed the same as women, but in a different way. Men's right and feminism should be working towards the same goal, equality. I definitely agree with that. It's not ever going to happen because feminism thinks that they're the only ones who can be oppressed, as we saw with the last video, but that should be what's happening. Maybe that things aren't always what we are told they are. Men and women both face different disadvantages in our society. It doesn't hurt women to talk about where feminism has left men behind. It doesn't make sense for half of the population to be ignored or vilified in equality discussions. Dismissing, making fun of, or even taking away men's rights will only make real equality impossible. Feminists state they want equality, and the part of their way to equality is to vilify men, which in a way is creating inequality. Yes, men do in fact have problems. For example, why are men assumed to be guilty in rape accusations and treated as such even when the accusation turns out to be false? And that's a very good point. Feminists might deny that that happens and like, well, men get off scot free and they're even patted on the back for way to go to rape that woman. That doesn't happen. If a man is accused of rape, his life is over. The rest of his life, he always has to live with people treating him as a rapist, even if he can prove he didn't do it. Why are all criticisms of feminism taken as misogyny? Also very true. You can't criticize a feminist because it's misogynist. Disagreeing with the feminism is the worst thing you can do. And there is a man up in Canada now who may face several years in prison because he criticized a feminist on Twitter. I wish I was making that up. Why are women assumed to be the primary caregiver of a child in divorce, even when evidence shows she should not be near children? There was a case very recently where a child died by their mother, and the father was trying to fight to get custody away from the mother, and even went to the court and proved, like several weeks before this happened, to say she is not fit, and the courts still gave her custody and the child died. If the courts had paid attention to the problems, Nemesis is telling me it was a 6-year-old, had the courts taken the issue seriously and thought about what was best for the child and not best for the woman, that child might be alive today. The man tried to do everything he could, and the court discriminated against him. Why are men the only gender to be drafted in order to vote? Why are women given lighter sentences, if any at all, for crimes compared to men, to the point that women can and have and do get away with murder? They also get away with rape. Women have walked free from raping boys, saying that either they were victims of domestic violence or they'll never do it again. Women have actually said, I promise to never do it again, and gotten off for it. Oh, okay. So Nemesis wasn't talking that the child was 6 years old. I know the child was young. I thought it was 4 years old. He was talking that the guy in Canada will get 6 years in prison for harassing a feminist on Twitter. Fucking awful. Why is there a narrative to get more women in STEM when women are actually preferred over men in those fields by 2 to 1? You know, Mercedes Carrera told me that she got advanced pretty quickly in the STEM field, and she knew it was because she was a woman. And she said that that shouldn't have happened. Why are the accused in a rape case named when the accuser remains anonymous? There was a law that tried to get passed not too long ago where they wanted the accused to have anonymity, and feminists fought against this because, oh, it's part of rape culture. And that's why men who get falsely accused of rape get their lives destroyed, because they get no anonymity. When someone kills another person, they can get anonymity if they're accused of killing someone. But when it comes to rape, no anonymity whatsoever. I like saying the word anonymity. Why are there no battered men's shelters, despite the fact that most violence is initiated by women? This is talking about the United States. There are no abuse shelters in the United States. And I think in Canada, there might only be one. Someone correct me on that. Why does the legal system ascribe to the Duluth model in spite of the fact that it is the least common form of domestic violence? I forget what the Duluth model is offhand. I could look it up, but I won't waste your time with that. I'll look it up another time. So we'll skip through some of these here. Oh, there we go. I thought it got deleted. Because after a while, they start all saying the same thing. And not that they're invalid, but I'm trying to get the ones that are actually saying something different. Nemesis comments on the topic about the woman who killed her own child. On the other thing you said about a woman getting her kids, a woman tried to hire a hitman to kill her ex, and yet she can still have her kids after that. Yeah. I mean, a woman basically has to kill her own kids in order for her not to get, in order for her not to get custody of her own kids. Because the court just automatically gives it to women no matter what. I mean, there was a woman who got sent to jail, and so custody went to the man. And the moment the woman came out of jail, all custody went to her. She was in fucking jail. It should be at least partial custody for the woman, but she got full custody just like that. Sorry for that. Men aren't the socially privileged class that they're made out to be. Women, if anything, are actually the socially privileged class. Men's rights issue entails such thing as male genital mutilation being socially acceptable, male suicide rates, male homelessness, unisex use in shelters not being prevalent. I'm not sure what he means by unisex. Well, I guess he means that shelters are not unisex, they're just for men. He or she. Because men and women could respond to this, not just men. Abortion rights for men. Technically, men will never get abortion rights. But they should be able to abort them from the financial responsibility of a child, just like a woman can. Child support being forced onto men, which is the same thing. Unfair double standard towards men, women's privilege, male dropout rates, custody battles favoring women over men irrationally, which we just discussed, divorce cases favoring women over men irrationally, domestic violence only being seen as a woman's problem, which I believe is the Duluth model, paternity fraud, sperm jacking, which we've discussed in the past, rape of men being brushed off as a joke or as a non-issue, courts giving a woman easier sentences than men for similar crimes, and more. If I were to compare MRM to a social movement such as feminism, I would say that the MRM definitely should be the more important movement after comparing feminist goals to MRM goals. Seda Chris, last time I watched TV was about 3 years ago. Yeah, I don't watch TV very much anymore. Usually I just have TiVo and just fast forward through everything, all the commercials. I remember the news saying that some 14 or 15-year-old boy was raped by a 60-year-old woman. I can't find anything else about the case, but it seemed fishy. It probably happened, and if you can't find it, I'm sure it has happened, and it wasn't reported. Because, it's perfectly okay for a woman to rape a man. That's what our justice system has basically taught people. That when a woman does it to a boy, it's perfectly okay. Men are dying, killing themselves. Boys are being medicated into emotional wrecks. There is the thing that boys are more likely to be diagnosed with ADD than girls are, and more likely to be medicated for disruptive behavior, even if their behavior is normal for boys in school. Infant boys are being strapped down and their genitals are being mutilated. Feminism, despite claims to the contrary, has either done nothing or made these situations worse. I'd rather go with the MRM who's actually raising awareness of these issues than the movement who's proven it doesn't care whatsoever. Yeah, that's I was reading from the chat. Nemesis Diablo is saying that nothing women do surprises him anymore, him or her. I'm not really sure if you're gendered, Nemesis. I was guessing you're a guy. If you're not, I'm sorry for that. Yeah, feminists at most will say they care about men's issues, but only so far as like the patriarchy and gender roles. They don't really care about any male gender issues. And if something is brought up to them, like the circumcision thing, they're like, well, you have to do that to protect men from getting a disease. And it's like, well, you know what? Women get breast cancer. Should we cut off their tits just to prevent breast cancer? 1 in 8 women get it versus the 1 in 1,000 men who get something from an uncut penis. Nemesis Diablo is a guy. Good, I got it right. So yeah, a lot of good stuff here, but it's kind of repeating some of the same things over and over again. Uh-oh. I think it deleted some of the... Oh, fuck. Yeah, it's deleted some of these things that I had marked, so I'm going to have to kind of read through them real quick and see if I remember them. I apologize for this. The system is far from perfect. Make sure I haven't... and I guess you can kind of read them yourself if I don't read them. Men are not disposable or irrelevant. Men are important for the good they do as a whole every day. Men love all in their sphere of influence despite popular belief. Given only opportunity, they actively seek to better things for their families and the benefits of others daily. Stop fighting hate with hate. Here's a good one. Here's a good one right here. And this one was actually marked in red. If you're really concerned with the rights and equality for men, you're better off joining the feminist movement. Men's rights movement is nothing but misogyny and toxic masculinity. Proof that a troll actually took this and didn't take this seriously. This is what you educate on men's rights and an opportunity for a feminist to talk about men's rights. Not about the men's rights movement, but about men's rights. And they use it as a means to insult men's right as being misogyny and toxic masculinity. And we're supposed to take that feminism is for men when they use their opportunity like this to insult men? There's a good one under here. Don't take what people say on social media for granted. Look things up, listen to the point of views of people you might not agree with, and listen to them until they're done. Don't dismiss things you don't know. Inform yourself. Be curious. 100% agree with that. I think the men's rights movement is relevant because a lot of men face the same issues as women, domestic violence, rape, but are ridiculed for it because it can't happen to men, and the MRM raises awareness for victims and survivors. I also believe the movement is important because of fathers who want to be in their children's lives are often demonized in custody courts. I don't even know what this is. This has to be a troll. If boys need help, I'm going to help them. The apathetic propensity to believe men should be self-reliant and independently strong regarding their own issues, even when they're miserable and struggling, is part of the problem that leads to social isolation and resorting to suicide when facing a society that they feel largely does not generally support them once they are a victim of anything. Caring about men and combating rejection and denial of male vulnerabilities is equally important to conquering a society's gender role issues as it intersects with other isms. And like I said, the problem that we face today as men predominantly is culture itself. No one really cares about men. And that's why men have the problems they have today. We live in a country where no one cares that 48% of domestic violent victims are men, and there exists no support network for them. Ads you could find on the bus send messages that men are rapists until otherwise trained, but we still believe in the theory of oppressive, omnipotent conspiracy controlled by men. I think that's good, and you can read it on your own. It's a little bit long, and I do have a few long ones to read. Men face a lot of hardships in our world, in the United States at least. I can't speak for other countries. And I feel that people sweep them under the rug because men aren't systematically oppressed. I believe that in today's day and age, it's very important to achieve equality between everybody. Men's issues are not taken seriously because people don't believe men can face them. Like men can't be raped or otherwise, or men are breadwinners, so they cannot be homeless, or men cannot receive custody of children because they didn't give birth to them. Just to name a few issues in which men need more rights. Men make up like what is it, 90% of the homeless population, and yet anytime the homeless are talked about, it's talked about how women are homeless. Sadochrist. Well, apparently Sadochrist is a rapist, and I'll tell you what I mean by this. Soon I'm going to rape some bacon on some rape bread that I toasted with some rape eggs on chickens from my rape breakfast. Anyone ever see that movie, like the National Lampoon's Vacations movie? It was one of the newer ones before this brand new one came out, and they're on that tour where there was the Hoover Dam. And he's like, "This is the dam tour. I am your damn guide. Does anyone have any damn questions?" He's like, "Yeah, where can I get some damn bait?" You know, and your statement there just kind of made me remember that. You triggered me by using that joke. You triggered me to remember a Chevy Chase movie. Shame on you. This one I sort of disagree with. It has nothing to do with taking away women's rights, but has everything with destroying gender roles and freeing boys from years of rigid requirements of maleness. Boys need to be taught that it's okay to cry, to be feminine, or otherwise identify with non masculine things, and much as girls need to be taught the opposite. I don't think it's so much that we need to teach boys that it's okay to cry. I think it's okay to teach people to be as they want to be. If a man wants to cry, he should be allowed, yes, but he doesn't need to be taught to cry, taught to be feminine. He can just choose to do that if he desires. Okay, so I think this one is good. I'm not sure. It is important to me as an egalitarian, before all else, that everyone have equal rights, equality of opportunity. There are differences between genders. We're sexually dimorphic species which cannot be helped. What can be helped is the right we afford to all others on individual basis. There are areas where men have better chances, true enough, but there are areas where women are better off, such as to do with college degrees and in child custody, as well as rape cases. We need to teach that it is not us versus them. It isn't men with less rights or women or blacks or any others having less than whites or vice versa. But what we need to make minute changes in order to make it fairer for all. There is no huge sweeping patriarchy or matriarchy, no real institutionalized racism unless one counts minority quotas. But a lot of smaller things need to be tweaked carefully. I know I wrote one of these on here and I know it was pretty long. I almost feel like those are my words, but I can't be sure. So I don't want to take credit for something that wasn't mine, but it kind of feels like something I would have wrote. Okay, moving on. Yeah, I really apologize for this. I actually went through this list and highlight all of these. This one I'm not sure about. It's the same question as women's rights, misogyny, the devaluation of femininity, an unnecessary gathering of basically hurts of gendering of basically everything hurts everyone, men and women and everything in between. I fully believe that being a feminist means I should be concerned about the rights and issues of men as well as women. Right. But misogyny is the hatred of women. And you're saying that men's rights is centered around misogyny. You're saying that the reason why men don't have rights is because women are hated. And maybe this feminist really believes that, dealing with men's rights is centered around misogyny. She believes she's doing a good thing, but her mentality is so ass backwards that she's saying that the reason why men are discriminated against is because men hate women. Does that make sense to anyone? Because that just makes no sense to me, whatever. So I don't think this was a troll comment, but it's just like this feminist is trying, but trying in the wrong way. And thank you, Nemesis Diablo, for the comment. He says that, shit happens. Nothing to be apologizing for. Well, he didn't say all of that. I just kind of gleaned it off of what he said. He actually said, no problem, Mad Cat. Things happen. Try to add a little flair to it. Okay, I think this is a good one. Men's rights focuses on raising awareness of and providing solutions for inequality that affects men, such as high rates of male suicide, homelessness, and death in the workplace. Men also suffer from less health care funding, receiving longer prison sentences for the same crimes, and have a lack of resources for domestic violence and rape. The movement is made up of men, women, trans people of all backgrounds, race, religions, nationalities, and supporting men's rights does not automatically mean indifference towards women's rights. I think that's a very, very good statement that I wish I wrote, but I didn't. That's very good, and that is very true. I mean, the honey badgers by themselves, they're women. They're predominantly women. I work for women on males' rights. You know, at one point in time, we did have Crystal Garcia. She was black. I don't know if we've had anyone who's trans within it, but we certainly have a lot of people that are bisexual. One of the people that I often talk about men's issues with is a lesbian. There's a wide diversity of people within the men's rights movement, but there is next to no diversity within within feminism. It is predominantly white women in that group. They might have the occasional man, but they really try to rush to the people of, I don't want to say that statement. I hate the statement people of color because it's no different than color people. They rush to find minorities to latch onto and say, see, we're better than you because we have a minority right here. FBI definition of rape is penetration. Women get convicted less and lighter sentences. Men have a 3 times higher suicide rate. Women cannot be conscripted. Society does not believe men can be raped or battered, and the list goes on. Just because women have problems doesn't mean men can't have problems. And just because we care about men's problems doesn't mean we don't care about women's. Society is so saturated with feminism that gender activism can only be looked at through the lens of women's rights. If you oppose men's rights because you support women's, then your movement is not about equality. Hey, Karin, I think I was speaking to you last night, wasn't I? Talking about that. Since you were not able to get through the test, Karin, if there's anything you want to mention that you saw in the test that you want to bring up, just go ahead and make a comment in here and we can talk about it real quick. I think it's important to focus on the issues not addressed by feminism when talking about men's rights so that people understand it's not just a response to feminism, but it's its own movement. Discussion of issues, excuse me. I'm glad this is my last video for the day. Discussion of issues related to circumcision, the labor death gap. I think it's important to do that so as not to absorb issues that are based on misogyny, such as the issues men face when going in predominantly women-employed fields, because those issues are based on the presumption that women are less than men and therefore can be solved by not supporting men's rights, but by addressing the inequality directly and promoting women's rights. So basically what he's saying is that if a man goes into a field that's predominantly woman and then the issue of misogyny comes up, they feel that the only way to solve the problem is to not look at what issues men suffer in that, but only what women do. It's a little bit specific. I don't know how important that is. Someone can certainly correct me on that. This was a quote to Janet Bloomfield here. Interesting woman. I hope to get her on this channel one of these days. I would love to like pick her brain. If you're listening, go bug Janet Bloomfield and tell her that she should come on my channel. So, like I said, after a while, a lot of these start sounding a lot alike. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a general consensus of what it is. But if I kept reading it over and over again, by the middle of this, you were like, okay, we get it. Men are human beings equally deserving of the same rights, freedoms, and protections under the law as everyone else. Full stop. There are areas where that is not the case, and there are no reasonable justifications for that, and it needs to change. Yeah. Men deserve equal rights, and there are places where men do not get equal rights. Men can face sexism just like women can, and just because you don't it or it isn't glorified in feminism doesn't mean it's not there. I think he meant, or he or she meant that just because you don't do it or isn't glorified in feminism, it generally is glorified in feminism, funny enough. Men have to sign over their bodies to the military and join the draft list before they can get a driver's license, and many other items as well. Someone correct me on that. I don't think that's actually true. I don't think you have to sign up for selective service at that time, because you sign up for selective service when you turn 18. You can't sign up for selective service before then because you can't be drafted until you're 18. Male abuse and rape victims are taken less seriously, and men have unfair expectations placed on them as well. Do some research and you'll find ways then men are disadvantaged. I think he meant you'll find all the ways men are disadvantaged. Okay, moving on. At this point, I'm just kind of picking these out at random. It's not about hating women or wanting patriarchy. The majority of this has nothing to do with women. It's about creating better education for boys, making circumcision a choice that isn't forced upon sons as babies, ensuring the right of fathers and more forms of birth control for men, and having it so depression, rape, abuse, mental illness, eating disorder, and body image issues for men are actually addressed and not pushed under the law. It's about the LGBTQIAP plus. Let's do that again. LGBTQIAPEIEIO. I mean, how many more letters do you have to add on there? Although someone told me that teabag is now I think it was teabag. No, it was quilt bag. Quilt bag is the new official acronym of the LGBT because it associates everyone in there. Men and their right and safety and the ability to express their identity freely. Okay, we're almost done with this, and I thank all of you for staying and chatting. Anyone else who's listening, go ahead and say something in the chat, and I'll be happy to read your comment. If men matter as much as women, and if continued prosperity of both men and women matter to people, then men's rights should matter to them as well. As Warren Farrell puts it, when only one gender wins, both genders lose. And right now, both genders are losing. There's one really bad one on here that I hope I find. If not, I can always search for it. People are concerned with women's rights because of what happened in the past. But it's stupid to assume men, I think he meant men there, don't have issues too. The fact that a lot of people belittle them and make fun of them or insult men that claim to have these issues, especially feminists, show how female centric we are becoming. It isn't men equals oppressor and women equals oppressed. The world doesn't work like that. Oh, here it is. Here's a good one. MRAs do not care about men. Do not give Paul Elam, the Honey Badgers, or any Gamergate figure your time or money. If you want to help men, become a feminist. So, your opportunity to talk about men's rights. Now, a lot of people give a short statement. The one right above, many of the issues that impact women also impact men. That's a very powerful thing to say. But your one opportunity to talk about men's rights, and you use it to insult the men's rights movement. You use it to insult Paul Elam. You insult the Honey Badgers. And I'm a Honey Badger, so I'm not really insulted. Excuse me. I'm not really insulted. I'm just laughing. And also insult Gamergate in the process. If you want to help men become a feminist, well, how is becoming a feminist going to help men? You didn't really say anything about that. All you said is become a feminist and men's rights is horrible. Sato Chris. So are feminists supposed to be fighting for equal rights to males? I don't see them fighting for rights to their parents deciding to mutilate female genitals. No, no, if anything, they're fighting to make that illegal in other countries. They're so set against that, but perfectly okay for it to happen to males. And as Karin says, that's because it's only bad when it happens to females. Fact check everything. That's how you find the truth. Very much agreed with that. Oh, here's a good one. I don't label myself as an MRA, but male depression is often mocked, and male suicide victims are often ridiculed for being weak. It's only when a prominent figure like Robin Williams commits suicide that anyone takes it seriously. Very much so. I mean, I'm very sad that Robin Williams died. It came as shock to me that he was very depressed. Although, kind of looking at his life as a whole, I guess I could see it. But no one takes it seriously. And when Robin Williams died, it's like, oh, he was just so depressed and blah, blah, blah. It was so sad that he had to face this alone. Robin Williams shouldn't have faced this alone. And if our society took this a little bit more seriously, I'm not saying that Robin Williams would have been alive today because he was in a whole lot of crap that happened to him. But, this is one of the reasons why men do commit suicide is because they're depressed and no one takes it seriously. Even if they talk about their feelings, nothing is being done to help men who are depressed. So Karn said in response to the genitals, so that's because it's only bad when it happens to females. Zito Chris, well, Karn, even air conditioning is bad when it happens to women. That is so true. Oh, I think this was by Terrence Pop. I would love to get him on the show one of these days or be on his show. Men's rights are humans' rights. More cock. Gonorrhea, syphilis, AIDS. Winning? No. It's impossible to dismantle the lies of feminism in just a couple of sentences. So I like Terrence Popp. He's a little over the top, but there's a lot of truth in what he says. And I really think he was the one who wrote that sentence. If he took this, he wrote it. And if not, like I said to Terrence Popp, he's spreading like an STD, probably gonorrhea, syphilis, AIDS. Tiberius Kirk, great to see you on here, Tiberius. I was wondering where you're at. He was talking about Robin Williams. He was paying like $30 million in alimony. Can't remember if that was monthly. I seriously doubt that that was monthly that he was paying, but he was paying alimony for 2 ex-wives. And unfortunately, with the way alimony works and the way child support works as well, is whatever you are set to pay a woman, when you get divorced, you must always pay that amount of money no matter what. I'm sure that was yearly, and that sounds just like it. I mean, the whole point of alimony was because oftentimes when women got divorced, they were incapable of working in a regular job because they spent all their time at home. So it was kind of a rehabilitation until they could get on their feet, but has then since been abused to the point that women will stay on alimony for the rest of their life. And if their husband is rich, then they make a lot of money for doing nothing. But part of what also the reason why Robin Williams committed suicide is because his show was canceled, and that show was fucking hilarious. I loved it. I mean, seeing what's her face? Oh, I can't remember. She played Buffy on Vampire Slayer. Sarah Michelle Gellar. She really brought that show as well with Robin Williams. I thought they were a great combo together. And I was so sad to see it get canceled. And I'm betting if that show wasn't canceled, Robin Williams would still be alive today. I really do. And I don't blame the networks. I'm not saying the networks are evil, even though they are. I'm just saying that that show should have stayed on. I forgot what it's called, but then I have a really bad memory. Okay, so I read that second bad comment. Ooh, here's a good one. If feminism is about giving women certain rights, then the MRA is about making sure men still have those same rights. If feminism fights for men, then MRA fights for women. In a lot of ways, MRA does fight for women. It states that women need to be responsible. They need to act like adults. Here's a good one. It kind of repeats some of the other ones, but the belief that men are privileged, that we live in a patriarchal society, that a rape culture exists, and that women are oppressed, have fewer rights than men, are paid less for the same work, are on constant threat of violence and sexual assault from men, and that men are masculine and masculinity is toxic, hegemonic, and destructive is all complete, utter rubbish. None of it is based on any solid evidentiary standard. It is all taken on faith based on dogma of an ideology, not unlike a religion. I often say feminism is a cult. In truth, men are just as discriminated against, and in many cases, more so. There are more women, and feminism actively ignores than are women, and feminism actively ignores and suppresses this fact, as well as many, many others that do not fit with its dogma. Eep. Okay, I think this will be the last one I do here. I'll still check through the other ones to make sure. Luckily, this stayed together. Men have equal rights to women, but they don't. No, men deserve equal rights to women, but they just don't have it right now. When it comes to certain things, men get it worse. When it comes to alimony, reproductive rights, child support, child custody, gen- genital autonomy, homelessness, there is no man's shelter in America. Not being able to charge a woman with rape without being laughed at and not taken seriously. On the other hand, a woman can cry rape and ruins a man's life with no proof. Being portrayed as stupid, clumsy, and useless in commercial and cartoons, while women are portrayed as smart and successful. I also remember seeing a woman's commercial in which a woman eats Greek yogurt and magically turns her stupid and fat, clumsy husband into a Brad Pitt look-alike, and then she is disappointed when it wears off. If that's not sexist against men, I wonder what is. Violence against men is a joke on TV and in the media. The audience will laugh as a woman kicks a man in the balls, beat the shit out of him with a catalog. I'm sure I'm misreading that. Or hit him with a frying pan. But of course, if the genders were reversed, everyone would be having a shit fit. I could go on and on. But the matter of the fact is that when it comes to these things, men get the shorthand of the stick, in the West at least. And I'm not even talking about boys declining in education. The double standard of female teachers who have sex with their underage male students and get away with little to no jail time. Little boys being drugged at female recommendations. Repressive normal behavior of small boys by female teachers. Boys being bullied and abused by feminist teachers in school. Some of those boys committed suicide. I fear for the future of my nephews and other boys. What I see is male shaming and male-blaming feminist propaganda being pelted at vulnerable young boys, and I also see a lot of institutionalized misandry. Feminism is not about real equality. It's about encouraging women and girls to see themselves as victims and, special snowflakes who shouldn't be held accountable or responsible for anything. Instead of taking responsibility for their choices and actions, they blame men and the patriarchy. Everything is always somebody else's fault except their own. It's always feminists treating women and girls as mentally retarded children or weak and incapable, coddling them and giving them a free pass to do whatever they want without facing the consequences. Thus, they never grow up, and they just want those women to be dependent on feminism because it serves their own interests. It's about imposing collective guilt on males. It's hurting the women's relationships with their male counterparts. It's about shaming and ridiculing male victims of physical and sexual violence. It's about censoring criticism and dissent. It's about attacking and even sending death threats to anti-feminists who advocate for men and boys. And I'm not even talking about blatant sexist and downright hateful hashtags such as kill all men, end Father's Day, I drink milk tears, International Castration Day, and if women rule the world. So making jokes about women making sandwiches in the kitchen is disgusting, but making jokes about killing men, mutilating their genitals, ending Father's Day, and men deserving prison rape is totally A-okay. There is a lot of hate, misandry, hypocrisy, lack of accountability for women, hypocrisy, and double standards in feminist circles. I believe hypocrisy was in there twice, but it's still important. Justice and real equality for all men and women, that means both ways. Bow chicka bow wow. If you are truly for equality, you have to be for the right of both men and women and address any unfairness, whether it's unfairness towards women or unfairness towards men, because they're both out there. Though I focus a little bit more on men these days, because it's time for people to see and hear the other side. I often hit up channels of egalitarian anti-feminists like Sierra McCord, Cora Newbold, Miss Anthrope, End Feminism, the anti-feminist frequency, the amazing atheist, etc. Oh, I'm not on there. I also hit in activist channels like Brother K, The Whole Network, Barefoot in Activists, Bay Area in Activists, Bonobo 3D. Isn't a bonobo the type of monkey that has lots of sex? Dave Thompson and Brian Heredia, etc. Wow, that was a mouthful. Yeah, I mean, all of that. Whoever this person was, which it sounds like a woman to me, whoever you were, if you see this, please contact me. You're a kind of person I want to have on the show. You have a lot to say. You seem to be well informed on this. And maybe I can make the list of the people you watch. But yeah, all those people I just listed there, especially Sierra and N Feminism, who I've had on this channel before, definitely follow them if you get the chance. There's just so much out there that we face as men every day, and it's just widely ignored. And if a man tries to bring it up, we're laughed at, we're shamed for it, we're told that, you know, it doesn't compare to women at all. And in most cases, they're right. It doesn't compare to more women at all, because women don't know what true oppression is. And maybe once ago, far, far into the past, women were oppressed in some society somewhere. And maybe even throughout most of history, women were oppressed. But in the last 200 years, women really haven't been oppressed in the United States, because neither men or women really had any rights. And back then, that was okay. Yeah, sure, maybe some men had the right to vote, but not all men had the right to vote. But as women started gaining rights, it started to become that men were largely ignored. Okay, so I think I'm done with that list. I leave it to the chat room. This is the final video that I'm doing on this once again. I will be putting an article up on the Honey Badger website at the end of the month, just to do some final analysis. So I leave it to the chat room. Do you have anything you want to say on what I've read so far, what I've done in this video series? I was kind of wait for them. Tiberius Kirk. I saw a video today of a woman saying air conditioning in offices is evidence of the patriarchy. It's apparently about making women feel uncomfortable in the workplace. Well, you do know that air conditioning was invented by the patriarchy just specifically against women. It's like, well, if you're going to work here, we're going to make you as uncomfortable as possible. Let's turn the AC down. Especially in Arizona. I mean, it's like, probably over 100 degrees outside right now. But any woman who's working, we're going to make you uncomfortable by turning the air conditioning on. Really? I mean, really, this is what you come up with? You know, there are like men and women who are suffering around the world. But if feminism, even focus on women like who get scalding hot water thrown on their face by their own family, I couldn't really complain about feminism for actually dealing with actual issues. But a woman has anything to bitch about, and it's always a gendered issue. Which goes back to my second video today about the LGBT, suing on the grounds of gender discrimination. Their case has nothing to do with gender discrimination. They're only using gender discrimination because the woman who was affected was a woman. So it has to be anti-gender, even though it was against gays and lesbians. Thank you, David Shanahan. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. It's 110 degrees out right now in Arizona. And you thought it was hot where you lived. Dry heat my ass. Said Chris. Oh, they don't know about the patriarchy's plan for butt plugs in a woman's chairs yet. Yeah, women, you know how you need that special chair because your back is sore? Well, there's going to be a little surprise when you sit down, and by little, I mean big. So leave it to the chat room. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Anything you want to say real quick before I end this? Well, while I wait for that, I'll say something final. So, this survey right here is very important, I think. 585 responses, 322 males, 251 females, and 4 intersexed. Because most feminist surveys, they stop after a while. The recent one with sexist men are bad at video games, or men who are bad at video games are sexist, or sexist men are bad at video games. That only had like 162 games that they tested. And when they broke it, and it's one of the few things I actually agree with Lacey Green on. And she's like, yeah, they stopped at that point. And it's like, and I know that there are scientists who are spending 400 days looking at dirt. And it's like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. It's weird that I do. I feel so dirty. But, you know, you only stopped at 162 games, you know, to make a judgment like that. You know, you should have been analyzing at least 1,000 games to get anywhere near a good sample size. And then they broke it down further, and they found with the female control that they only had 82 responses from men. And with the male control, they only had 62, which is about like 144 responses. 144, and they tried to make it say that all sexist men are bad at video games. And here we have nearly 600 people. And in my opinion, well, by those numbers alone, this is 6 times more valid than that survey was. And if that's supposed to be all encompassing of the world, this is so much more encompassing of the world. I don't know if I'm ready yet to say that this is an inflection of what the world is, but I think it's a good representation of the first world. But I won't say it's all encompassing. I won't say that it represents Western society or first world culture. But I say it's a very good look into it. However, with 600, I think someone could make that case. This is a well put survey. I wish I did this. I wish I could take credit for this. And even if feminists somehow find this and send 1,000 angry feminists to destroy this, we've already seen what most of these people have said. And the things that men want in this world, the rights that they're fighting for, is shared amongst men and women. What men are you referring to, Tiberius Kirk? I don't know if I mentioned someone or not. So I'm very proud of this. I'm very proud of the response that we got, and I'm very proud of the influence I've had for it. I'm very happy that all of you have come and joined me these past few weeks as we've discussed this. Almost kind of sad to see it go because I enjoyed doing this. You know, I had some great people on here. I know I've discussed it with Sierra. I know I've discussed it with N Feminism or Cassie, Bazfaz, Rachel Edwards. I had Dan on here. I also had I can't remember her name, and I feel bad now. She was on during the when Dan was on here. It's like Cosplays Jam or something like that. I know I'm getting that wrong. And we've talked this thing to death. So I do say goodbye to it. I will keep my eye on it. And if we get to 1,000, I'll probably do a quick review on it. But at nearly 600, I think we've sent a message to feminists about what is important to us. Oh, that's actually a very good question. And I actually did a video on that on my channel if you want to check it out. The way they determined that they were sexist is if they gave a negative comment to a woman. There were actual sexist comments given to women, but that only counted for 13%. And they couldn't account for why only 13% said that. But yeah, the whole men are bad at video games or sexist is that they were more likely to give sexist comments to a female than they were to a male. But that test was really, really badly done, in all honesty. But then so was the 1 in 3 men will rape if they have the opportunity. So thank you for that. And I thank you, Tiberius Kirk, Sato Christ. I'll kind of go through this list. David Shanahan, Karn, Sato Chris, I think I already said him. Yeah. Nemesis Diablo. If I'm forgetting one, sorry. This has been such a great experience, and I look forward to seeing you on future videos. Be sure to check out my other videos I did today. This was number 4 that I did. I'm also starting a Patreon. It's going to launch next Wednesday in line with all of the videos I'm doing then. And also check me out on Sunday where I'll do a weekend review of the honey badgers, where you might possibly be able to come on the show and talk about some of the issues that the honey badgers discussed this week. So anyways, find me on Twitter, ggmad_cat, and I will see you Sunday. This is Mad Cat signing off.